Welcome to the Space Turtle Show, the greatest show in the galaxy. This time we've got episode 7, Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain. Time really flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, honestly, there's so many things happening in this movie that it's only been a couple days since we watched it, and I had to refresh myself on what happens because I know the couple moments and everything like that, but the overarching story is just so many things happen. It's what is the overarching story?
Yeah, it's literally whatever can happen will happen. It's Murphy's Law of the movie.
And it's literally there's you cannot expect what's going to happen next either. And yet there's some sort of overarching symbolism that you can grasp onto, which I really enjoyed. And so I guess as a brief summary that barely dives into anything, Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain chronicles this journey that the main character, which is pretty much Jesus or a Christianic figure, on his journey to run into the alchemist, who is this person that has a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, and joins him and a group of greedy capitalist people on a journey up the Holy Mountain in search of truth, immortality, pretty much everything that these people couldn't get by being the titans of industry that they are. It's greedy people want everything, so this is the next step. Once you've got all the monetary, all the physical stuff that you could want in life, and they want something else, and the Holy Mountain is there to give them that last thing that they're wanting, whatever it is, really.
Yeah, and I would say for opening thoughts, love the randomness, love how weird it is, love how crazy it is. It's actually batshit insane. It's so insane.
There are scenes in this movie that I've never even fathomed to be filmed before.
Yeah. I mean, just all the fun facts that you tell me too about the context around it, they all totally make sense. What was it? Was it a week or 10?
Oh yeah,
days
so a week. Yeah, it was a week.
That Jodorowsky did not sleep before shooting the movie. You don't even sleep while you're shooting movies usually because it's so much work. Why would you do that to yourself? What was your method, man? But it kind of worked.
Yeah, it kind of worked. Yeah, and there's a humor in it, which is really refreshing for how long the movie is. Because I think maybe the closest that I can compare maybe a tone or an artistic thing would be the Wolf House from last season, if you guys watched that episode. And that movie's an hour 20, an hour 30, can't remember exactly. But this one goes 2 hours, and there are definitely things that it's never boring because there's always something new happening, but because it doesn't have that horror element of the Wolf House, sometimes it's what's going on and you're not exactly sure, so it's hard to grasp onto things.
This movie feels nothing like the Wolf House to me.
I think visually or just there's things that are unexpected that happen in a Wolf House too, and it's artistic and set design, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm pointing at, really.
Sure.
But my point is that the humor in it and the self-awareness that is in this film really serves to at least keep yourself invested on what's going on in the screen. If it was 2 hours of beating you over the head with, even if it's well thought out symbolism, it would definitely get tiresome really quickly. And so this having random things happening all the time, and the sense of humor kind of keeps you mostly engaged, although even for how nonsensical and not there's almost zero dialogue in the film, so it's all images, but those two factors kept me watching and kept me excited, really.
I mean, the sense of humor is great. It had some jokes that had me rolling on the floor laughing, and I think, we were laughing together for sure.
Yeah.
Certain jokes, even just the little things, when he's this is it now, I'm going to cut off my head, and then they take the big weird sword and they just using such a big, ugly, stupid sword, and then having a lamb be cut up instead. It's such stupid, funny symbolism. It's just there's just so many, like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, like you're saying, and if it did, then I think it'd be insufferable, actually.
Yeah.
But he's got a great sense of humor, and you have to if you make a movie like this.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys have watched the film as well, because this is going to be pretty much nonsense if you haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite scenes, and the one that I think really shows a bit of everything in the movie and a bit of what you're getting into, even though it's not that early in the film, is the scene where the main protagonist enters, I guess, a comically large, like, rectangular tower with a circular opening.
The fishing hook.
Yeah, he just goes up the fishing hook, enters it,
Went right up to heaven.
Yeah.
Jesus did it.
And it's this beautiful rainbow room that he enters into, with just this really nonsensical scene of Jodorowsky's The Alchemist sitting in his throne with some, I guess, goats next to him.
Yeah.
With some pillars. There's a camel there. And there's
Gotta include the camel.
And there's this naked lady with some, I'm assuming, tattoos on her, even though it obviously doesn't look like tattoos. Looks like they did it with Sharpie or something, but...
Yeah. I mean, it's very encompassing of what this movie is in general, that scene, because it's like weird animals, nothing makes sense, naked people. I mean, that's the trio. That's like his holy pyramid.
And great cinematography too, I'd say. There's beautiful colors, and they highlight each of the pillars, which are like black and white. There's just so many things in this movie that I know have like a certain meaning, or like a certain statement that the director is trying to say. But other than like some really obvious or really overarching ones, it's pretty difficult to piece together as a first watch. And so I feel like, and am hoping, that this movie gets better and better with each watch. And I think it really deserves at least 2, if not 3 or more watches to fully appreciate everything that goes on in this movie too. So that prefaced, there is something about in the opening scene that there's a figure dressed like Jodorowsky's The Alchemist in this scene, like pretty much the same thing except black. And then now Jodorowsky's The Alchemist is white. And then there's the whole black and white pillars. And then there's the whole fight with the main character. And I think that actually kind of maybe has to do with maybe when Jesus like died and went to heaven, he's like, all right, I'm gonna throw hands with God for making me do shit.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of got out of it. But then, like, obviously The Alchemist dodges everything and is like really not fearful of the attacks at all. And then he like paralyzes him, I guess, or like unleashes his chakras.
He civilized him. Like, let me take away this octopus parasite and make you talk. Like, yeah. I love the first thing he says is, "You want some gold?"
And he's like, "Yes."
Which is, it's hilarious, but it's also like, oh, civilized people are so greedy, now they're bad.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's nice symbolism, and it's funny. It's mostly funny, and it's also smart if you think about it.
Yeah. And so the octopus, like, why was it an octopus? I'm so confused. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. But one of my favorite aspects of that scene is the way he shoots the octopus getting cut out. So he cuts into the
tumor.
Yeah, the tumor, and it's like oozing, which is fine, and it looks like, 1970s and that kind of stuff like that. But then when he pulls out the octopus, it's like covered by the hand, And so it's like something that's so jarringly not smooth, you know, that happens so often in this movie that it makes me respect the audience. It made me realize how much he respected the audience and how I feel like I need to respect the audience more because we get it, and honestly, it doesn't even like negatively influence the film in my opinion. That some of the things are like super just like not realistic, or like the shots weren't even trying to like get you to think that this is like actually happening. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna cover it and then just pull out an octopus. Like obviously, there's no shot of like trying to get the octopus in there somehow or like pulling it out like from his body. They just like cover it and they just pull it out. And that reminds me of one of the
It's funny because I don't even know if I deserve that much respect because I didn't notice it all.
Well, you did notice in the lamb scene, you know, because they just like cut and then like throw back.
Well, sure, yeah, I noticed. They just put a lamb there.
Well, I'm not trying to say that as is like, but it's like they do that all the time during the movie, and it's actually kind of hilarious, and it worked for me because the projected budget of this movie was like $1.5 million, and that was gonna be like the highest budgeted film in Mexico's history at that time. And then it ended up only costing about half, which is like insane that this movie is, and just great how you spare some expense to try to and then lose some of the realism just to like invest in like other scenes, like I don't know, the whole rainbow aspect of this giant like auditorium, like H gym, like something like that.
And like imagine going under budget. Who would do that?
Halfway under budget too. Like
yeah, if I were like 7/8 of the way done with my movie and I found out that I had like $500,000 more to spend,
we going back.
Yeah.
We making some shit look better.
Reshoots, man. I'm doing something. I'll like make some business expenses or whatever. I'll pay the interns.
Yeah, give everyone a bonus, man.
Yeah.
Roll out some money.
Do something. We're under budget. What the fuck?
But yeah, that was very impressive to me, and I really enjoyed that. Even like movies in the 1970s, it kind of gives it a little bit of pass since we're not looking at practical effects and that kind of stuff as detailed as if this movie was a modern era. But I think it like fits the whole aesthetic of the movie too. And I feel like if a movie came out that had the same tone and had the same type of like symbolic theme that it was going for, I definitely don't think I would mind those types of shots, because it's all, well, especially if we're talking about the ending where he like zooms out and he's like, this is a movie, like, and so
we'll exit our confines of the picture.
And so yeah, it totally worked for me, and I thought that was a great point of the film, or like portion of the film. I don't know if you had any of your own thoughts about that.
Well, I would say I love a lot of the movie, like it's the ending as well, like, and his whole tone and everything he does. The only thing I dislike about the movie, and it's actually a pretty major dislike, which hampered my like of the movie, was when he had to introduce like every single individual character, it lost so much momentum. It's like you hit the brakes so hard.
Yeah.
But everything before that was brilliant, and everything after that was brilliant.
Yeah.
And if they cut out that 30 minutes and it was just like an hour and 30 minutes, then I think we would have had an easy masterpiece on our hands.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I was talking about like that extra 30 minutes that's in the movie, and how other films like that are like an hour and a half that are a little bit more tolerable. But I have like half and half of what you're saying. I agree. I disliked the jarring nature of just switching from one character to another, and I think there was an easier way.
Don't mind me. Just getting
Introducing
some
the
ASMR for the audience.
hell yeah, of introducing the cast to the viewer. And I also felt like some of the later introductions were a lot less interesting than the beginning ones. So I definitely think you could cut like a lot from there. And I guess the group would be a lot smaller, so that'd be a big deal. But anyways, not to dive into it too deeply. But I actually really liked the stories, at least when they went into each character. Setting aside the fact that they have to interrupt the entire momentum to like switch to another character, but some, if not like at least half of them, were insanely great and had these iconic moments in them. Like the first guy was the guy who made faces for people so that they could look exactly like they wanted to, which is really interesting and almost sci-fi-ish that it went into.
Definitely sci-fi. I would say this is a sci-fi movie for sure.
Yeah, and that icon, like one of our favorite lines to come out of this movie was there.
There's so many.
They talk to this advisor, I guess, who like sticks his hand in a woman's like body part, and he's like, if it's wet, it's a yes. If it's dry, it's not. It's a no. And we literally died at that moment. Like, that is an original sentence. I have never heard that sentence in my life, and I don't think anyone has ever said that sentence in their life.
I'll never hear it again either. I'll never hear someone, or like, who's not one of us, maybe, quoting the movie.
But iconic. And then the second or third one was like this artist who did like a lot of body art, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But like in the capitalist sense, where he's like manufacturing it for everything, for profit and stuff.
That was
like
the
that.
robot orgasm one, right? Like you had to stick the stick in the robot and make it orgasm. Open.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the funniest parts and iconic scenes is the conveyor belt of asses that you just had person like stand with their ass out. The painter grabs paint, slaps on some paint, and then they sit down, and the next one is slap. Like, man, speaking, because we've been to a lot of contemporary art museums recently. That joke hit home like so hard.
Yeah, they do. They've got some great stuff in those moments. I do agree.
Yeah, and the coffin one where they are like, we came up with this genius idea of like how to house a bunch of people. They're in these like little I wouldn't say like cubicles or like Japanese like hotels where it's just like a rectangle. They made it like coffin-like, and then they made like a model of how you would have like many of them in lines and like up stories and stuff like that. And that's just a hilarious image to me. And everyone's like, yeah, revolutionary. Like, this will be so efficient and everything. And it's like, well, yeah, you're in coffins in like stories and rows of it. Well, yeah. You know, that was hilarious. I think some of the later installments were definitely like starting to drag, but the first couple were hilarious to me and like ingenious almost.
Yeah, I would say they literally got worse and worse every time. Like the first was the best, the second was second, the third was third. And well, and another thing that bothers me about it is like maybe you could have found a way to put those those jokes in differently or something.
That's true.
Or just they did so much on those individual characters, and then the following couple of scenes I literally didn't even know who was who, and the movie didn't even tell me that I should care or give a fuck at all.
Yeah.
Which like leads me to believe it's such a random movie, but it really did have a plot.
Yeah.
Like from the beginning and the end. And just cutting so far and going 30 minutes is such a long time.
Yeah.
Like, even the first story was great. Maybe you cut it in half or even 3/4.
Yeah,
and then you do the second one 3/4, the third one. Like, if you made that scene maybe 10 minutes or something. Maybe that could have worked.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it was so over and over and over and it dragged so much that I was actually about to fall asleep before the movie started going again. And it took a second for me to get back into it, which it did. It ended up, especially with the ending when they're like, this is a movie and now we're leaving. that was so funny.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that. I'd say that is the biggest flaw is that like section. It just totally like cuts away from the main character who you've been following for a while, and even after these industry powerhouses or whatever they aren't really that important. It's just like a group of really powerful, really rich people travel up a mountain, and there's nothing really more individualized from these people past the backstory. And so it's like these things aren't important later on. And so it was just like Jodorowsky having like a lot of ideas in his head, and usually they kind of work out, but in this specific scenario it was just like, I want to put like, this is funny or this is like wonky, like, and I want to put that in my movie so badly, even if it doesn't like fit correctly, you know. And so that portion of the film was definitely a puzzle piece that wasn't like totally in line with the rest of the movie, and he kind of just like shoved it in there, and I felt like that's a big criticism of that part of the movie as a whole. And
I understand the predicament, you know. It's like, if you shoot something and it's cool, then you want to put it in there. I feel like I'm criticizing it, but maybe I would have done the same thing. I probably would not have cared at all if people wanted to keep watching through it or not.
I mean, I think Jodorowsky is the embodiment of I don't care at all if you want to keep watching or not.
Yeah. and that leads to some great stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I do have one more criticism, because if we're kind of on criticisms and there's not too many. So there's so much freaky, sexual, weird stuff that happens that I start to I become diluted to it, and then it doesn't really matter to me much after the second half, where it loses its shock value, so it loses a little something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pretty much after the first act, I didn't even care anymore. I mean, there were some, particularly funny ones. The only two that I cared about after the first act were when the guy was getting his ass washed. Yes.
That's a whole thing I'm going to talk about after you're finished.
Perfect. And for some reason, I remember the guy the guy that had a bunch of chickens on him, and he was on the chicken tree.
Oh, yeah. I think it was
random.
a lady. I think she had a scissors.
It was a lady?
I think she had scissors or something. I think the whole thing was because I can't remember exactly, but there's so many things that happened in this movie. So forgive me if this was part of a different person or backstory. But in my memory, it was tied into the castration person, the one who came from their backstory was there's a bunch of guys, and then there's one guy that's strapped down, he's about to get castrated, and then there's the whole wall of testicles, it's part of the ritual.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And so when he gets the fear, because that's when they're getting tempted, right, going up the mountain, his whole thing was there's cocks on a tree, a whole bunch of them, and this lady with some fat pairs of scissors. So it was I thought that was maybe a little bit of a
that's funny
connection.
I didn't think about that because I was falling asleep by the time that the testicle guy showed up, and I was like, God damn it, another guy. I think actually that was the worst one.
Yeah,
because the coffin one you're talking about, that was the last one.
Oh really?
That was Pluto the architect, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I do remember Pluto, because Pluto's my favorite planet.
Controversial planet.
Yeah. Pluto is a planet. Fuck you guys. If you don't think Pluto's a planet, you are a hater.
Hey, that's NASA, man. That's NASA.
No, NASA doesn't know anything. I don't know.
What a bunch of nerds.
Clearly, it's a planet. It goes woo. Like, what are you talking about?
It checks all the boxes, the singular box.
What are you can't? I can't live like the first 3/4 of my life with Pluto as a planet, and then you just tell me Pluto's not a planet anymore.
Honestly, tangent, but like I can't believe there wasn't more backlash. Because I remember there was like meme backlash, and I was like, I think it was like elementary school, middle
I think
school.
we were like 10 or 11.
Yeah, so it wasn't like my memory might not be that great, but like it was just like no, but it should have been like pickaxe, like torch, like no, you know.
I mean, I think the government would be nervous if they did it today.
Yeah, with the internet like that kind of, they would be roasted so hard. Like Twitter would be going off on them, like all that kind of stuff.
The TikToks would.
Oh yeah,
insane.
Yeah, like it was just like the disappointment sound or something.
Yeah, there would be riots in the streets. It would be, but anyway.
Yeah. That was a big tangent.
Pluto is the best planet, and that's I didn't even like that story that much actually though.
I just liked
other than the coffin thing. Like
yeah.
But even like I didn't even like remember that because I literally was about to fall asleep. I was literally starting to go there. I was like, God, I do not care anymore.
Yeah, it definitely gets super bad.
But when you explained it to me just now, I literally didn't even know that's what it was because I stopped paying attention.
Well, I think that kind of brings us, talking about all the different random acts of wackiness, and there are plenty more that we're going to get into. But I think that brings to my question, what is, I guess maybe aside from this, if it is, what's the most wacky, random, strange movie that you've ever seen? And do you think that there's a trend of lessening that in the modern age, or do you think there is a place for this type of film in the modern age anymore? Or
interesting. The weirdest movie I've ever seen. It's such a hard that is a hard question. We were behind the scenes. You told me it wasn't a hard question. It's a very hard question.
Well, you can say this. You can get
I feel like it could be this. It really could be.
I think it's a little easier for me because not that I have like a straight answer, but because some of my favorite films are just like really, really random like this. Like there's the Synecdoche, New York, and
Synecdoche doesn't hold a candle to
That's true, but I remember it at least being one of the first introductions to just things are just happening and I can't help but just laugh at them. Like when it introduces another layer of that, and then especially like I don't know if you remember this scene, but he uses his cane to like open the warehouse, and then there's like another flap on the map, and then he opens another warehouse like flap, and then there's a tinier warehouse like in that warehouse, and it's just like so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some weird stuff.
Yeah,
I would say this one. Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot of A Clockwork Orange. I think that's pretty close to what it is, but A Clockwork Orange is a little more driven, a little bit more serious and cynical.
Yeah.
And a little less weird, surprisingly, because that was one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. I've got to say this one, though. Like, I've got to.
Yeah. I mean, there's this one, there's also, like, one of my favorites, like Enter the Void, and like
but like that's not even close either.
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm saying. I don't have like a straight answer, but like I do have some weird movies that like pop to the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, I would definitely say this one, and I would say that no, modern movies, if anything, were getting more weird. Like, I feel like it all goes in cycles. Like the 70s in particular were really fucked up and weird because a lot of times it has to do with the political climate at the time and the cyclical nature of film. You kind of get to more conservative or liberal points in film. And I think we're getting to a more liberal point in film right now, whereas it was getting like Christopher Nolan style was very 2010s,
Yeah.
and that was
Like
very
realism.
realistic.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now it's getting a little bit more colorful and a little bit more hazy, and the stories people are trying to tell are a little weirder. Not that I mean, it's hard to say. Like in the 70s, that was the first time you even could be weird. So
People really.
they wanted to take advantage.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense, and I think the 70s are the weirdest time in film, which is why it's actually my favorite decade in film. I love the 70s. But I think the late 2010s, early 2020s is arguably one of the weirdest times in film also. Other than, you got your big blockbusters and the MCU and everything is like built the same. But on the indie level, yeah, there's a lot of really cool, weird stuff coming out.
I think that's a great answer. I think that, in my opinion, there is a commercial aspect of movies that have started to become a lot more intertwined with art making, and that wasn't necessarily the case in the 70s. So I think we are trending towards weirder, but I am still kind of up in the air about whether we will get something as weird as like the things coming out of the 70s and the Holy Mountain. Because I'm just thinking now, like, who would finance that movie now? Even if it's like A24, or like the closest thing I can think of like weird is like maybe like The Lighthouse, but it doesn't even really hold a candle that much to the Holy Mountain.
But I mean, the thing is, I've never seen anything in the 70s that comes close to the Holy Mountain either. Like,
yeah.
No,
Okay, fair enough.
Man.
Fair enough.
This is a one of one. I've never seen anything like this movie as far as, I mean, it's just a factor of this movie where they were consistently trying to be as weird as possible all the time. That was their main goal, was to be weird and shocking. And most films don't have that goal, so it's just, I don't even think it's the best goal to go for most of the time. Usually you just want to go for whatever the story needs. But I mean, I'm glad one movie did it.
Yeah.
I'm glad like this movie did it.
Hey, catch us in Spooktober, and since I know that you're enjoying Jodorowsky, finally gonna push harder for Santa Sangre,
El Topo?
Oh yeah, El Topo
I'll
too.
watch that.
Yeah, like his horror movie, or quote unquote horror movies. That's been on my list for at least like 2 years now. Every like Spooktober, or we're watching a bunch of horror movies, but I never. Especially with Tommy here, no hate, but it was like really hard to push for these movies. So I usually end up going for other ones instead. But yeah, maybe catch us in Spooktober, see if we watch another Jodorowsky movie, see if it's just as weird or not.
That would be cool. That would be cool. This guy is definitely a voice I want to keep listening to. He's the best.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. I like the trend we're going to. It's definitely weirder. Bringing up Christopher Nolan, gritty realism. I think even like late 90s is like in there. It's like maybe a little bit more stylized realism, but you start in with like Seven and like.
Well, that wasn't realism at all. That was the exact opposite.
Yeah, but it's like the detective.
Literally the opposite.
I mean,
late 90s was not like realism at all.
I mean, it's like going towards it. There's some like exaggerations, but it's like exaggerations within like human like. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like real human characters and like real human like struggles and like crime and that kind of stuff. Even if the crime is just like the most bonkers crime ever, focusing on crime is just like...
Yeah, I mean, the 90s, I think it was all about, one, like the editing technique, and like two, they decided they could start making movies about people just talking and like how interesting you could be. Like witty dialogue was like the shit in the 90s. Like Kevin Smith, fucking Aaron Sorkin, Quentin Tarantino, all these guys come in the 90s, makes sense.
Yeah.
The 2000s though, I think that was like George Bush, like George Bush era movies. You know what I mean?
George Bush era movies.
Like they sucked. The 2000s were bad for movies, but definitely not weird. Anyway, that was a tangent. My question to you, though.
Okay. Hopefully, I can
it's more. It's kind of an interesting request.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna want to do this, but I bet you'd want to do
What am I
this.
supposed to do?
Make a 30-second story, the most fucked up story you can possibly come up with.
Oh man!
Just off the top of your head.
That's so hard because there's so many. Damn! I guess we're giving each other hard questions where we preface them with. One of the first ones that come to mind is a. Okay, are we supposed to make it like controversial or not? Because.
Don't make it too controversial.
No, because it reminds me of this one film. I forgot the name of it. I think it was. I forgot, but it's about like this child molester father and the conversation he has with his son when he finds out like that the dad has been molesting his friends actually. Another one is the.
But you got to make it up.
Yeah. I was just saying like I would go in that direction, like.
But you're not going to. But you would. What does that mean?
Well, because you're asking me like, what's the like most fucked up thing I could do?
But you gotta do it. Just say it though.
Okay, so I would say that it would be like a movie about the most depraved desires and almost like a Seven Deadly Sins type thing, but it wouldn't be like that obvious. It kind of would have like a tone of like shame, except like going farther than just like I'm addicted to sex. It's like these impulses that a person has that's uncontrollable, like people who are locked up in like psych wards and like diving into their mind and the things that they've done to other people and like the way it honestly a little bit reminds me of Lunacy, except more about the people rather than this weird. I don't even remember what that movie is
Lunacy,
about.
the weird Czech movie.
Yeah. I don't know the year or anything like that.
I don't know the year either.
But it's like a psych ward like that, and how it goes crazy and like entering the minds and seeing what. That would be it. Yeah, it'd be. I mean, I don't think it's anything revolutionary because I have 30 seconds to come up with the most fucked up thing in my brain, and we watch so many fucked up stuff that like I feel pale in comparison, or vanilla in comparison to some of the movies we watch, for real.
All right. Well,
what about you?
I came up with one
while
we were talking. Well, I came up with the first sentence, and I'll see where I go with it.
Okay.
It's about a guy that wakes up every morning, and he has a lust. He fucks a jelly donut every morning, and then he eats it after. He like licks his own.
Wait, so is it a jelly donut before or after?
It's a jelly donut before, and then he fucks through it, and then jelly gets on his penis, and he's like, "Oh, I like it when the jelly gets on my penis."
It's just extra jelly then. It's just an extra jelly donut afterwards.
Well, yeah. It's like a glazed donut.
It's a jelly donut that gets some glaze on it.
It's a glazed donut. And then, so every time someone brings up donuts or like shit in the workplace, he like immediately comes. Like blasts off in his pants. And maybe like the cum like goes through his pants. Oh, but he's got like a superpower because, well, he's eaten so many donuts and it's been so bad for his digestive system. His cum has turned acidic. So it like melts shit. So he'll like, so someone will bring donuts for work and then he'll cum like on their sock and then it'll burn.
It'll go through the pants because it melts through the pants.
Through the pants. Yeah, on the sock. It burns the sock. They're like, ow, what the fuck was that? And he's like, I'm so sorry. And then like, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you've inspired me. I feel like my movie would have to have a lot of erect penises. Because I feel like if you put a single erect penis into a movie, it becomes the worst movie in the world, for real. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I've ever seen like a full like. Actually, was it in Shame? No, I feel like it was never wrecked in Shame. Yeah, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head is like Birdman, but like
but that was just
in the underwear. Yeah, because like you can show pretty much fucking everything, but not a fucking erect penis, bro. That shit's too far. Like,
well, that's one thing I loved about this film is a lot of the films, especially in the 70s, usually find a way to like make women like naked, and they'll just like make women strip for the film even though they wouldn't have to, or like it's a very constant thing in film that's like sexism in the film industry. People will just tell women to get naked and like whatever. There's a lot of naked women in this movie, but you know what, there's a lot of naked men too. So he was totally 50-50 with it on this one. I would be like,
shout out to you, Jodorowsky.
They're objectifying women a lot, but there were a lot of dicks. Like, it was at least like 6 dicks.
That's an understatement, man.
Yeah.
There's a whole, like, his ass gets fucking washed, and it's like, I mean, there's no asshole. It's not like they're spreading his cheeks, but you can definitely see the hair in there, you know? You can see, like, it's getting all foamy.
He was impartial with the nudity.
Yeah, and that reminds me of one of the, another really interesting, factoid, I guess, is that they actually had a lot more famous main character or main actor to play the main character, and he dropped out because he was like, I'll do everything else in the movie, but I won't do this ass washing scene. Like, come on, that's like too far. And Jodorowsky is like, nah, man, it's staying in the movie. And he's like, just this one scene. If you just cut out this one scene, I'll stay in the movie. Jodorowsky's like, nah, get out. You're fired. And you know what's so hilarious? Funny. It's George Harrison.
Literally, if George Harrison were in this movie, it would have been an instant classic. An instant classic.
I was this close to seeing a Beatles get their ass washed in a movie.
You should have just said yes. George Harrison should have just got his ass washed.
That is so funny.
But also at the same time, I love that you said, like, in the commentary, he was like, yeah, that might not have been the best idea.
Yeah, he was like, the star power that he would have brought might have gotten more people to watch this movie, and that's probably a bad thing. And you know what? Shout out to him for being like actually honest too. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's everything about him. He feels like a pretty normal guy, even though his movies are so weird. Like, he feels like he has some self-awareness.
Yeah. I mean, other than the fact that he didn't sleep for 7 days before he started shooting, and that they lived as a commune for like a month before they started shooting, like the whole cast and the whole crew as well.
Yeah.
Which is like,
but like,
insane.
That's, I relate to that though.
Honestly.
I feel like that's something I would do.
Yeah, I feel like that would be such a great experience if I was like making movies or part of like movie making in the 70s, like just really like sleep. It's all collaborative, and it's all like going full 100% in there. Like,
oh, you know what I've been meaning to do sometime recently? I'm gonna try to do that 24-hour, like the marathon, but you run a mile every hour.
Oh shit.
You should do it with me, dude.
Hell no.
You don't even need that much cardio. It's like
at this point, it's not even with this one. It's not even. Yeah, maybe. No, I'm like, hell no, bro.
I think it'll be the hardest part. Will be like staying up, really.
Hell yeah.
Or
yeah.
You know, I can actually just go to sleep, set an alarm, like sleep 30-minute naps, like 4 times.
I hate doing that.
Yeah, I mean it would suck. But anyway, what were we?
Well, I think we've talked a lot about. We have had questions and we've had like moments, but I want to bring up what's your favorite moment in the film. And what do you think the film was about, or what did you take away from the film as like a thematic whole, or like as a story that is being told?
I'm so glad you asked. Because there is no scene that I care more about than the opening-ish, where it was just all the lizards, and then they put all the frogs on the table, and then they blew up the table. That shit was genius, man.
I knew you were gonna say this, and it's so true too. Keep going.
No, I mean, I don't even have much more to explain. They spent like 3 minutes just making you look at lizards, and they were so cute. They were so like cute little lizards on like their little pyramids, and I was like, oh, it's so lizards, they're so cute. And then they unleash the frogs, and the music gets ominous, and you're like, oh, frogs, oh fuck. And the frogs start eating the lizards or like jumping on them, and you're like, what are they doing? They're supposed to coexist, these frogs and lizards. Man, I should have. I can't believe I was sober for this film. It was such a mistake.
We could like watch it again, being not sober, and I bet it would hit just as like half the movie would be like, oh, I didn't even remember this scene. You know,
it would be so much better. Yeah. It would be so much better because like that frog and lizard scene was one of the best scenes I've ever seen.
Oh, I totally agree, and I kind of want to also give a little bit of context with it. It's like it was like a recreation of the invasion of like I guess the Aztecs or like yeah. And it was part of the beginning portion where you kind of, in my opinion, you watch Jesus or Christianity evolve through the ages. And this one was like the Crusades, this portion, and they introduced the lizards, and I really thought they were going to go with, and we're like the civilized people, so we invade these lizards, and they're killing people, and they pour blood, like they sacrifice her. But then the people that they put in to represent themselves are frogs too, so it's like, it inverted my expectations, but at the same time, it created this insanely riveting and hilarious scene of watching. Honestly, this is what I'm talking about, where they put the budget into other things. Like, they put the budget into creating this really detailed, like, a recreation of the temples, and I'm 100% sure they, like, hand put the costumes on every single one of these animals.
Oh yeah.
And there's like a whole fact about it where it's like the lizards were really easy because they didn't even move. Like the camera people had to actually shoot scenes that were like 3 or 4 minutes long, cut down to like 10 seconds because they're just waiting for the lizard to move, and they wouldn't shake off any of their like clothes or anything like that. But the frogs kept oozing everywhere and shaking off all of the clothes, and they're just like the most pain in the ass thing to shoot.
Yeah, so funny.
But it's like the satirization of like the invasion. It's like the ominous music, the pouring of blood, and you're just pretty much watching these lizards and frogs kind of pretty much chill out. I mean, there's like a little bit of fighting, but like awesome scene, and that's definitely a top scene in the entire movie by far.
Well, and also you were talking about the music.
Oh yeah,
the music though. It's so good, right? Like, the music score is so good.
Yeah, are you talking about this scene or in general?
In general.
Okay, I totally agree. That's one of my top portions. And it's so funny because like Jodorowsky is involved in the music too.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so great. I love, especially like the beginning music, like the little, like the drums. And
the handhold drums and like, that kind of stuff. It adds like a mysticism, I feel like, to the film, and not that is like super duper unique, like no other film has like a mystical soundtrack, but it totally fits the film, and it utilizes like sounds and instruments that I usually never hear in film. And like I've watched movies from like every decade, like, you know, like various films, and I was still surprised by like the sounds and the combination of like music that was coming from this movie, and that just totally matched what was going on the screen, and I just thought that was great.
Yeah, it really gives it some personality, right? Because it's not like your conventional score. It's very different from that, and it does on some level have similarities to just normal tribal music. Like I kind of got that from it.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
It was very playful, and the way they used it with the tone of the film, it worked on a different level than anything else before. So it used it in a way that was able to play to its strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have much more to say about it really, other than it used some low opera in the beginning, and I was like, gotta have that low opera. Like everyone loves the low opera now. That's what everyone's doing. So it was a little ahead of its time. A lot of this movie was ahead of its time.
Yeah, I feel like while I was watching, some of it I forgot because it was a couple days ago. But while I was watching, I was like referencing like other movies that I've seen before, and probably most, if not none, were like before this movie. So it's like, oh, I remember seeing like this in like this movie, and then this in this movie, or like even just tones, like I feel this tone in this movie, and I like feel the framing in this movie, or like this like cinematography, and all that kind of stuff. And I had like 5 or 6 movies off the top of my head while I was watching that I was like, yeah, either this directly influenced it, or like just in the zeitgeist the influence,
Yeah, that definitely. It feels like a lot of directors today watched this movie. And they were
I'd hope so. Yeah. So did you have like a overarching like a theme that you had, or like a meaning, or something?
Generally, my opinion on it is that I stopped caring about it. Actually.
That's actually an awesome theme to that kind of fits in my opinion.
I really feel like if he wanted me to pay attention more, he would have given me a better reason to. And I don't even think I don't think it was his main driving force was for me to pay attention to the general major theme of the film. So I kind of went with the ride on this one, especially like I said, in that part where I almost fell asleep. Like I really did stop paying attention, and on some level, he's very much a film anarchist. He's doing whatever he wants, and I do feel like there is a major theme. I would say clearly there's some religious cult themes going on here. What he's saying with that is, honestly, I'm just going to let you explain what you think about it, because I don't have strong opinions on it. It really just wasn't something I cared to think about while I was watching it.
Yeah, no, I think that is like a totally, I would say probably the right way to think about it. I'm a sucker for like overarching themes and that kind of stuff, so I might be squeezing a little bit too much out of it, really. But in a summary of the movie that isn't, a base synopsis, I think the initial scene that the movie opens with is really random, actually. I was reading that it was just like...
What was the opening scene again?
It was the 2 girls with the black person, and they cut their hair, you remember? And
Yeah,
and...
Yeah, that was random, and literally
I think
never went back to that. Oh, no, they did go back to that, like, one time.
Yeah, I think in the outfits maybe, but like, I think because I was reading about it, and it's just like, this is like a tea ceremony in like Japan, I think, or something. He just wanted to shoot it. And the 2 girls weren't even paid. They just wanted to be a part of the experience. And yeah, I mean, that's but apart from that, it starts off with Jesus, and I think it was this journey of the Christian faith as it evolved through the ages, so it starts off, I like the poking fun at, in my opinion, like that they just propped up like, I don't know, some homeless guy maybe, and these kids just started throwing stones at him. And in my opinion, it was talking about how it was probably just this random real person that just went through some random small events that kind of correlated to the Bible or like to Jesus's, but it was definitely exaggerated upon by every single like retelling until it became like this miraculous figure, so and then he goes, and since this guy's like immortal, I guess, he like has the portion where he's like fighting all the people like dancing in the church, when it was like the police officers dancing with someone else in the church, and he's like, no, it's like the police of God or something. And then he gets really drunk, and he wakes up and like they made like molds of him, and he's like, no, this isn't how you're supposed to do.
All his molds.
And he starts eating his face, which is just like a commentary, I think, on how if Jesus, the messianic figure, were to come down and see how it's commercialized and bastardized, like his like image and his like legacy, that he would hate it, like obviously. Reminds me of the scene in Songs from a Second Floor where
I thought you were gonna say Jesus Christ Superstar.
One of the movies that I was, that might be a spoiler, but
For what?
For the movie that I was going to compare.
For Jesus Christ Superstar?
No. For the movie that I was going to compare this movie to.
What is it? Well,
Jesus Christ Superstar.
It's a spoiler, so it is a spoiler for Jesus Christ Superstar.
It's a spoiler for the next part of this episode, where we talk about movies that like we want to like talk about in comparison.
Oh.
You forgot this was a segment.
No, I didn't know where you were going, and now you literally had to spell it out for me like I was 5.
Yeah.
Holy shit! It's already been 57 minutes.
I know, right?
What the fuck?
I'm like trying to get to the
Yeah, we haven't even. Sorry. I've got so many random things just to say.
Yeah. There's just so many random things in this movie. But anyways, so it's just like that, and then eventually you get to modern times where you have the big building, and he goes in there and he meets the alchemist, and of course he then turns into like a human kind of, and he wants gold, and he can speak because he's like more evolved, like he's evolved past like a story, and now he's like almost like a character in the movie. And then it's like this journey of characters in the movie who are greedy, who want something more, as like a comparison to people who are satisfied physically, and they want something more. Because when you're like scrambling to put food on the table, the last thing you think about is religion or truth or meaning or immortality or something like that. But then once you have all that, you want truth and meaning in your life.
Then you turn your shit into gold.
Turn my shit into gold. Turn the shit into gold.
What?
It's like the Eric Andre. No, remember the Eric Andre? He's like...
No.
Okay. Well, anyways.
I'm glad it was something. That's my bad. I should... Eric Andre's a genius. I should know.
But anyways, so he takes these people on a journey, and then there's the journey and everything. And at the very end, he's like, he goes back on that these are characters in a movie, and that what they want the most as characters in a movie is not immortality, but reality. And that's like the whole last line that he says, that like, we have made it here, and you think that the adventure is over, but it's not. It's never ending, and we came here for immortality, but we are mortals. And then so he pulls back and he's like, this is a movie, so go out there and live, because what we wanted was immortality, but what we got was reality. And so I think it's this whole comparison that the most powerful, most politically highest, like richest people in the world, in this world, are all seeking something, and what they're seeking is reality, and what they're seeking is what we have. So like, go out there and live, because these characters, their whole journey to the Holy Mountain is to get what we get every day, like the ability to live, I guess.
That's very profound. You know what? That's pretty smart.
That's what I think. That's my opinion. But yeah, that's.
I hope that's what the message is, because now that is what I'm subscribing to.
Yeah, and the whole part of Jesus not joining them at the very end, he goes with the girl and the monkey that keeps following him.
Yeah. So this is like, there's so many little things. Like, if we spent time dissecting every random thing, it would be like 8 hours long. Like, why did she just have a monkey with her? I mean, I feel like there is a symbolic reason, which is the annoying
that's what I'm
part.
saying. There's like the octopus. I still haven't figured out why there's a camel in that, but I just know that there's a reason because he like zooms in. He doesn't zoom in, but he shows the camera like to the camel, and it's like, well, like.
Yeah, you know the annoying thing about that is like, it's actually so easy to come up with a reason for doing things.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't take that much energy, but knowing what they were thinking takes so much energy. So I'm sure that he just came up with that shit in like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
It's like, oh yeah, she should be around a monkey because, I don't know.
Men are monkeys. I don't know. And then now we're like, what does the monkey mean?
Yeah, what is the octopus? It's like, oh yeah, I came up with that on set like the day of. Like there was just like my set designer was like, I know how to make an octopus. It's like, oh shit, let's do it.
But yeah, those are my thoughts. Do you have anything?
I have 3 thoughts. Well, I have 2 thoughts and maybe a third one. Actually, I forgot the third one, but maybe it'll come. The first one is, how'd you like shooting the little short before?
Oh yeah, hopefully you guys stay tuned past the short. You didn't click off before the short or after the short so that you can see. But
I was thinking about it, and your short must be like 25 seconds long, or like 20 or 21
true,
seconds.
yeah.
So it can't be that.
Yeah.
Hopefully they keep going.
Yeah.
It's not as excruciating as my 2 minute of us just doing nothing.
No, I thought yours was great. I didn't feel the 2 minutes dragged on at all. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. I'm surprised that you did. Yeah, I guess it would be like 30 seconds. I haven't edited it, obviously, so I don't know how long the intro is. But yeah, I tried to channel Jodorowsky, and I really loved the shot of the eye in the movie.
I hope so. It's a pain in the ass.
In the movie, and so I tried to recreate it in real life. I didn't know too much about this movie going in. I just heard that there was great cinematography, and I just seen like stills from like this movie, and that was enough to get me really invested in watching it. And so that's kind of what I was trying to channel with creating the short, was not necessarily to emulate any of the themes that he did, and also it's really difficult to do that in like 30 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But just to be a little bit obsessed with certain aesthetics and certain like images that you could just like cut a still of, and that would be interesting, and so that's kind of what I did or wanted to do. And I had the most fun time filming it with my friends. Shout out to Ridovic, who helped us out so much.
Ridovic's got to find his name somewhere on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be in the beginning. I'm going to edit it in so that he gets some credit in there. But me, Joey, and Ridovic shot that. Super fun. How was your experience with it? I know. I was just saying because it was like, me like explaining it to you was like so much different, I bet, from what you guys like eventually saw was like put on. So I feel like maybe like that was a big aspect of it.
I really like, I had no idea what you meant when you explained it, but I wasn't worried about it because on like a visual medium, especially when we're shooting like these opening things, it's a very visual like kind of thing that we're doing.
Yeah. So
it's like really impossible to explain it because we have like what it is in our heads, and you can't just like transfer like the memories or like the image.
Yeah.
And if you try to explain it, it's like kind of like no matter what, it's just gonna sound dumb. Like if I explain, like I feel like when I explain my ideas, it just feels like it sounds dumb anyway.
I didn't think it felt dumb. It was definitely hard for me to visualize it as well, which I think is easily the same way, like the other way, But
I like the process of putting it together. It's I don't normally do it, and it's funny because most film critics always wanted to be like filmmakers or whatever. But I literally didn't. I love film criticism. I love talking about it. I like it as a hobby. But to see the other angle as like doing like filmmaking stuff, it's very exciting. putting that together. I don't
Yeah.
know. And putting so much work into a 5-second shot, it feels like it would be demoralizing, but it's actually pretty awesome. You finally get the 5 seconds and you're like, let's go. We got it.
Definitely put in perspective, like, the amount of spontaneity in it. Like, I know there are some directors who are like very meticulous, but even then there's like no way that you can visualize and know all the details about how to put things together and it to come out like super perfectly. And so while we were working on it, like new things were coming in, like using your spotlight. I had never really thought about that because I didn't even know you had one up until like we were shooting it. And then while we're like trying to like position it, we're just like taping things to like walls to try and stabilize it. Like it came out like pretty much how I visualized ish, but like the process and the way that it goes there was like nowhere near what I imagined in my head. I actually thought it would be a pretty simple simple shoot, but it turned out to be like hella complex.
Yeah. And like I would actually say that shooting these intros has reinvigorated, like it's added an extra spark to the show for me, because it's just, and there's something about the creative barrier where you got to do something and it's like 2 minutes and it really like doesn't matter on some level, that makes it so easy to like kind of put these out in. And like especially with these first two ones, like I don't know, maybe you go to the edit board and you're like, this is terrible, I hate this, but I don't think so. I think it's gonna look beautiful. Just I don't know where we're going with this. Is kind of fun, and it's just becoming good filmmakers is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
What if we just end up being filmmakers one day, and then we're like awesome filmmakers?
Don't give me hope for my dream job.
And then they're like,
I've given up on that for years
wow,
now.
look at these intro. It's like Childish Gambino's videos on YouTube, and they're like, whoa, he was like on YouTube. Like, whoa, these guys were on YouTube. Yeah. Whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Although, like, the funny thing is we have our stupid little line that we say before the show, or like before shows before. No, like the
like the single line.
Yeah, the single line, and that is like formulaically the best thing for YouTube. And these intros are gonna like start tanking our videos.
I was just about to bring that up.
They're so much better though.
Yeah.
I think I love it so much more.
And there's I think there's like a hopefully like a audience that appreciates that, and you know there wasn't too much of like a thinking of the audience when we started this kind of stuff, but we kind of did a little bit. I mean, we played the games in some aspects, and then taking a step back and being like, you know what, it doesn't matter, it's just for our fun and stuff like that was really enjoyable. And you know, I was kind of worried about the workload that you're like introducing into the podcast when you first brought the
intro idea.
Yeah, the intro idea up. But you know, it is a lot of work. It's just about the same huge amount of work that I thought it was gonna be. But it was fun and it was satisfying, and it was definitely more enjoyable than I imagined it to be, which was great.
Yeah. Well, so that was the first thing. This episode's gonna go long. This episode's gonna go long. So first point, yeah, cool intro. I'm excited to see the finished product. I think it's gonna be fun. I really like the look of it. It reminds me of like a little mix of those, like the older movie, but a lot of the newer stuff, because people really couldn't shoot darkness very well until recently. Yeah. And
I mean, even ours isn't that well, but it's not like The Lighthouse or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was reading about the way they had to shoot that film to make it look the way it is like insane. But
yeah, we would have needed like 5 or 6 people to actually
and
make
like
that
intense lighting, like to get the contrast and everything.
Yeah. But anyway, second thing, drink of the week, right?
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. So I bought this tequila, not sponsored. So just throwing that out there. Don't go support them unless you want to. Not from us. But I bought this tequila. Yeah, it is. Because Jodorowsky, Mexico representation, and Because I'm still stuck in that intro line that we had. Even though I know that we don't do it anymore because of the intros. As soon as I was thinking of like the drink of the week, I wanted to like take a fat shot of this as like my intro stuff, and then and be like, Joroski. And that was gonna be my thing.
Damn, that would have been so good. Dude, you should have done that for the Minions movie.
What? Joroski?
Yeah, I was gonna say Minions, but Jodorowsky's way funnier.
But honestly, in reference to that as a tangent, one of the things I enjoyed about the Minions was like the surrealism and the way that things kind of just like went from scene to scene just because, and not because there's any logical reason, and everything like that. And I feel like I was kind of put into that mindset because we watched the Holy Mountain like before.
Yeah.
And although I do leagues enjoy the Holy Mountain more because there's like this thematic like push through and like a lot of specific symbolism that it does. If you strip all that away and you just do random for random's sake, Minions is kind of like that, you know? Like,
yeah.
And it was enjoyable.
Minions and the Holy Mountain. Maybe that's my comparison movie.
Hey, it was in my mind.
Who knows? Wouldn't that be a funny comparison? But yeah, I just want, we threw it in with some margarita wine because we know how to make margaritas, but honestly, if you just get that margarita wine at Walmart, it kind of tastes about the same, if not better.
For the amount of work, like the min-max of it, that's great.
It's a lot less expensive too.
Yeah.
You just put like tequila with the margarita wine, throw some lime juice in there just for a little touch. It's a banger.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was really quick. Yeah, I did remember my film.
Okay.
Luckily, we spent so much time talking about shit that I finally remembered. Christian movies are so bad. Like, that's what like will get me away from Christianity.
It's because of the Christian movies.
Well, if you are so bad at making movies, like, why are you so bad at making movies? Like, why? But I mean, I'm asking that rhetorically because it's clear that you don't have like self-awareness about the world, because that's what it takes to make a good piece of art or a good movie. And if you can't do that, then what are you even? If you can't make like. But it does bother me on some level because it's totally possible. Like, Silence rules.
Oh, Silence is probably my favorite Christian movie.
Like Passion of the Christ. I haven't seen actually, but I heard it was really good. Probably better than God's Not Dead or some shit.
Oh, for sure. I think another one I would shout out. It's not a perfect film, and it's not even like one that I love. But I say Hacksaw Ridge is not like a bad example of like a Christian movie that can be like mainstream-ish.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's it's not even like really Christian.
It's like half war and half like
he's a Christian.
But he's like, I'm gonna do the best thing or like the good Christian thing, and it works out for him. But he is
very Christian.
Yeah, but like the situation surrounding it, like at least lends the realism that like it actually can work out for him. It's not like God's Not Dead where they're like pray for someone to wake up, and then they wake up, you know.
Like, have you seen The Two Popes?
Oh, I've seen most of it. I switched it off because I was watching it with my dad, and we started eating dinner, and then we just did it back up.
Oh, that was one of my favorite movies. That was 2019 too. God, what a year.
Yeah, what a year.
Literally, like, that would have been top 5 free for me in any other year. 2019, I don't even know if it got to top 10.
Yeah.
God, man, what a year. Literally, that year was too good. That year caused the pandemic. The movies were so good that we got punished as film fans for like 3 years after, and we're still feeling the effects. It's a bunch of bullshit.
I think it's like there's got to be at least one good year out of every 5 years, which sucks because that's only 1 out of 5. But like,
I mean, literally...
2014, I think, or 2015.
2014?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have a year like 2019 until like 2014 happened.
Yeah.
Which sucks, man. That's so awful.
Well, if pattern serves right, we have 2 more years before we get the next one. Or like the second year would be that year. So
The problem is too, like, it's so long. Like 5 years is such a long time
know.
that it makes me think like I'll never get that high again of having such a good year of film. But like I didn't think that. Like I was thinking that, and then 2019 happened, and I was like, oh, thank God.
It gives you so much of a
my
dry
God.
period that you don't think it's gonna happen, and then once you immediately start thinking it's never gonna happen, it's like, we back, bitches.
And I like right now. I feel like it's never gonna happen.
I have this is like a toxic like relationship. Like it's like straight up like a toxic lovers type thing, like with movies.
Well, and I love that you're getting dragged into my movie repertoire because we're doing the show and we're reviewing like everything. So you get to see all like the real shit. You don't just get to watch the good ones anymore.
Damn it.
We're watching the bullshit. Like we're doing everything, but
I've never for once seen every single one of the Best Picture nominations, and I feel like we're soon getting there. You're making.
Oh, we still haven't seen Coda, and that fucking.
I didn't see Shape of Water.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling slowly but surely, you're getting me to watch more and more of those, and like. I don't know if that's exactly what you were saying, but
no, I mean I am, but like 2019 though, it wasn't that hard to because they were all like actually great, except for Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah,
but actually, any other year, like I wouldn't have minded Ford v Ferrari so much because it would have been probably a pretty shit year. Anyway.
That's such a big tangent, but yeah. Anyways,
that's the 3 things that I had to say before we got to the 3rd segment. We're not even to closing thoughts yet, and we're an hour 20 in.
Okay, well, to bring up my comparison, I'm going to be quick with mine because I honestly haven't watched Jesus Christ Superstar enough, and I haven't watched The Holy Mountain enough. But there was a certain electricity and a certain interesting way that Jesus Christ Superstar presented the story that I've literally been beat over the head with until I'm like flat on the ground. That actually interested me. I'm not saying the movie was like one of the greatest movies I've ever seen or anything like that, but the songs were great, the dance numbers were great. They weren't just like, we're telling the Christian story and then let's add some dancing in. I feel like honestly it's more of like the dances and the songs were the jumping off point for the movie. Not that that makes any sense, but like that's how it feels. And then the different perspective of like Judas being like the main character and everything like that made an interesting and refreshing take on the story. And I feel like because Christianity is really heavy in this movie, I would say like 30%, which is bigger than literally any other aspect of the movie to be like included for that long, because everything is just like one scene, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is like the biggest part of the film, but it did it from a really unique perspective and a really unique way of presenting that perspective. The perspective being like an objective view on like the evolution of Christianity and what religion means to a person, what truth means to a person, what journey and growth means, and how religion does or does not, does, but either in a direct or indirect way, influencing a person. I thought that was one of the biggest comparisons that I thought of. And yeah, the perspective of the way that he treats Christianity, and honestly feel like I don't think he had like an overall negative depiction of Christianity or Jesus after the whole movie, but it wasn't positive either. It was like there are bad things and there are like good things, and like there are certain themes of love, especially with the lady that kept following him, and how he didn't follow the alchemist all the way to the table, because he's like, you have this love or lover or something like that you go with.
You're Mary Magdalene.
Yeah. That I thought harkened a lot to Jesus Christ Superstar, and not like in the sense that it was inspired by, because obviously not, but yeah, that, and I could just bring up like whole different, like, there were so many movies while I was watching that I was like, this little bit, this little bit. I've forgotten it because it's been a couple days, but yeah, to reiterate, it was either directly influenced by this movie or in the zeitgeist, because there's so many revolutionary and influential things and pioneering things that this movie did that permeated movies even till today, I believe.
Yeah, well, if you're bringing Jesus Christ Superstar up,
yeah, I bet you have a lot more to say, so I'll give it up to you.
Just for some context, I mean, we are in hour 20, but he brought it up, so I have to talk about it.
Never mind.
No, I watch Jesus Christ Superstar with my family every year on Easter since I was like 6 years old, or maybe 8.
What's 2 years?
It's been a while. Yeah. Since I was pretty young. I've seen it at least 15 times, and it's been every year. And it's so funny because I went through this wave of love and like dislike for the movie, where it was like, this movie's awesome, and then it was like, this movie's so cheesy and dumb and bad, and now it's like, no, this movie's awesome. Like, I love Jesus Christ Superstar as like a film, like on a technical level. Yeah. Like, I think as far as musicals go, it's one of the most underrated there is.
Yeah.
Especially because of the guy that plays Judas.
Oh, it was so good.
Like, the movie's great, but that performance on a whole nother level.
By far.
Especially like his singing too. Like, we try to look up the soundtrack sometimes to get like his opening song, like the guitar, like the but it doesn't have the same guy. It's like just not the same as when he does the
movie. You gotta watch it from clips from the movie.
Yeah. Anyway, I totally agree though. Like, the 70s were, as a concept, I love what they were doing with religion because of the way they approached religion and politics, and how they all intersected and how it was being used for political reasons. And it feels like a very big pool of intersection between like folk music going on at the time and the religious feelings of the generation growing up, and film interpreting. Like, Jesus Christ Superstar in this film came out around the same time, right? So a lot of these things were very common at the time, and they were a very big deal to the people there. And I think of that a lot because I grew up as a Christian, and my family is very Christian, so I kind of had, I felt like these movies and these kind of things were very relatable to me because, I kind of grew up in the world, and I felt kind of betrayed by what I was told.
Yeah.
So in that way, yeah, I totally agree that their approach to religion and the Jesus Christ figure, I think, is a lot more similar than people would have expected. Like, Christians really like Jesus Christ Superstar, but I don't even think they get the movie. Like, I don't think they get it, man. Like, it's Jesus Christ is a big figure, but he's more human than people like to talk about.
Yeah, totally. I think as a lasting thing of that statement and the Holy Mountain, it is Jesus as a mythological figure, as like an influence on history, then as like an evolved character in a story, like evolving past the mythological into the real day person in this movie, and then at the very end to, I don't know, not be there present to the realization of reality. And I think that is like a beautiful arc of the figure of Christ and the way that it influences the people. Christians or not Christians, really. So
Yeah, totally. And for the sake of moving on, I could talk for hours, but actually, I'm definitely going to make it a Space Turtle movie one time. But
Jesus Christ Superstar.
yeah, probably next Easter, not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can watch it again next season. We just watched it, really.
No, I wouldn't do it next season for sure. I mean, I literally, once a year is enough.
Yeah.
Like, once you get past, like, 10 times watching it, it's like, alright, I have literally every scene memorized beat for beat. Like, I don't, like, it kind of gets tough. Anyway, my movie, though, is, I was talking about it before, it's A Clockwork Orange.
Ah, okay.
It's
I haven't seen this movie.
very similar in the way that it's presented and how weird and cynical and crazy it is. Or, not cynical. Actually, I don't even think this movie's that cynical.
No, I don't think so either.
But Clockwork Orange is very cynical, and it's a very similar style because it's just very 70s. It's just most 70s movies feel like this. Although not all 70s movies, but most 70s movies that push the boundaries. A Clockwork Orange is the most mainstream one that comes from that. It's the greatest example because it's Stanley Kubrick, and he's done so many things before. It's like he did 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then he does like this really weird, fucked up movie about like one of the worst people in existence, just beating the shit out of people, and that's the movie. But in essence, it's like the randomness and the craziness and the what am I going to see next? Like, I don't see this coming. I don't expect this. The randomness of it, that's what I get from the comparison. It's like, I don't want to dig too much into it because you haven't seen A Clockwork Orange. I should show you sometime, but
I feel like it would be one of my top Stanley Kubrick films if I watched it.
It's my favorite Stanley Kubrick film, and it's like
even above Apocalypse Now. Wait,
I hate you.
Is that Stanley Kubrick?
No.
Coppola, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay. Second try.
This guy with film history. That's like the basics. That's like the basics, man. Anyway.
Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Now you've got 3. I literally don't think you can name 4. And maybe you can name 4.
A New Hope?
No,
Kidding.
You're kidding. Right. Anyway, just for the sake of time, it's very random, it's crazy, and it goes all out there. And I would say that A Clockwork Orange is the defining mark of what these types of films are, and it sets the stage for like every other film that's close to it. It's like no one ever says A Clockwork Orange is like this film or like this film or like this film. It's like these films are all like A Clockwork Orange because this is the one. And I like just for like a film history sense, it's just interesting to see like the similarities between them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the whole thought of this movie. I think this was probably the most difficult segment to do, and we did kind of breeze through it. Generally, I do want to talk more about comparisons to film because I get to talk about like things like how does one character motivation change the story? How does
I'm sorry, I just saw it was 1 minute.
Yeah, it definitely has been a long.
Not that it was long. It's just I gotta wake up in the morning.
Oh yeah.
But not. Sorry.
You're
This is just dumb. It's just that I'm breaking the context.
Yeah, we're supposed to be figures on the internet,
But like,
not with our own
don't people
lives.
like authenticity, right? So what if I say like,
Joey's got to do some.
I'm
traveling
nervous
more.
about. I can say at the same time that I'm annoyed that I've stayed up this long, and also I think it's a good idea that we've made the podcast this long. Like I don't regret it, but also I'm like, oh no.
It's just the struggling priorities, like
Sorry.
really contrasting each other.
I interrupted you though.
Oh, no worries. I think what I was just saying is that like this segment has been like the most difficult because generally I like to talk about how like small minute things influence the trajectory of the film. Like I think we haven't had this for long, but the Aladdin versus the Notebook, like comparison and that kind of stuff. But to be honest, there is not that much for the Holy Mountain, and so it wasn't.
There's a clock. I swear to God, you gotta watch it. I really feel like you would love it too.
Yeah, I think I would, but
it's hard. I'm sorry. It's hard to watch the Holy Mountain and then go to the Clockwork Orange, though. On some level, you'll probably be like, because you've watched so many fucked up movies, you haven't watched the OG fucked up movie, and then you watch the OG one, and then you'll be like, oh, it's not even that fucked up. But I still think you like it.
I think I will too. But yeah, other than that, so it wasn't like that satisfying of a segment, but you know, if you've seen this movie, I think you would have been waiting for the segment, being like, what are they gonna say? Because I felt like that when I was thinking about this segment, like, what am I gonna say? What movie am I gonna bring up? And so, yeah, I mean, ending that segment, is there any like final thoughts that you have, or
final closing thoughts? I've already brought all this up before, but just to put in a little bow. Love the movie. I love all the randomness. I love randomness in general. I love people doing the weirdest thing possible because I love weird movies, and I love what they've done with the comedy. I love that it didn't take itself too seriously. You've got a lot of similar enjoyments of it, so I'm going to leave you to that for sure. But just for me, aside from the 30 minutes of introducing the new people, which I thought was a total snooze fest, other than had some good ideas in there, but I just felt like editing wise, that was a really bad editing job. Like, genuinely, like, I thought it was bad. And the shock value kind of wore off at some point because it was so shocking the whole time. It's just, at some point you just expect the worst. And but while those are criticisms I have, I still loved it.
I think my final thoughts, I do want to bring up one joke, other than maybe if we weren't like super clear on it. In this movie, Jesus shits into a bowl, and then they turn it into gold. Just wanted to bring that out there.
So funny. And they gas him with his own like shit.
He's like suffering, man.
Oh my god.
They like boil his shit and then they gas him with it. Like, and then
if you turned every individual scene into a short film, it would be like a banger.
Yes.
Like, an instant classic.
And then the second is one of my favorite scenes that I was debating on bringing up, other than that, the scene that I ended up bringing up, was the scene of the temptation place. I forgot what it was called, even though I literally just refreshed myself before this podcast, which was more than an hour and a half ago.
Temptation place.
Yeah. At the whenever they meet the people who got really close to the top of the Holy Mountain, but they didn't, like, one of the guys was like...
Oh, like the bar?
Yeah.
Oh, like the guy that's like, I've conquered the mountain horizontally.
Exactly. I want to highlight that.
Plainview?
Plainview sounds different. But...
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's...
But I want to highlight that segment because that segment is underrated in this podcast because we haven't brought it up. But they go in there, there's like food, women, booze, whatever. But even that's not that tempting. There is certain, like, this focus on this one guy who says, like, I am a poet, my words are truth, my words are reality. And so it just, like, it symbolically, it makes me think of people who are a little bit hubris and they think that they figured out what was real, and that's what really stops them. Not necessarily the temptations of the place, like food, women, booze, whatever, but like being a poet and thinking like my words create reality, and so being stuck because you think of that, and then they go to another person who is like the cross is just like LSD, remember?
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff, and that's really interesting. And then obviously the best one of all, which is like,
No question.
I've gone through the mountain horizontally, which is just hilarious and deep, I think, because it's like, that's kind of true. I mean, he did like
Conquered the mountain.
I don't know about conquer.
Conquered it horizontally.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like shifting the problem so that you can get some sort of completion, but not like the true completion. And I think, like, symbolically, even though it is like hilarious, that's my favorite thing about symbolism, is that it can be hilarious and deep at the same time. And the way that it's portrayed, where he's like, whoop, whoop, and he's like, I did it.
So good. He's so good. Yeah.
But yeah, I did want to highlight that. But overall, there is just such a electricity to this film, and there is the only flaw that I would say, other than what we've discussed so far, is that for some people, I don't think this symbolic, nonsensical ride can impact people, and that's something that I have to think about all the time, because I guess I am more of a person who wants to make films rather than just criticize, on the opposite side of the coin as you. But because we do analyze a lot, and analysis teaches you how to be a better filmmaker, it's a little bit of a hard wraparound just to think about how some people might not come to this movie and feel the same as I do. And I want to say that, yeah, that's true. This isn't a film for everyone. And even though I loved it, I feel like there is a inherent bias to the way I love it. And so I just wanted to include that in my closing thoughts.
So rating, my bad. I had to shit real quick, so we stopped.
Oh, damn. Did you get some gold out of it?
I'm no Jesus.
You just gotta stick your head in the bowl and just take a big whiff, and then it'll turn into gold, you know?
Fuck!
I'm the alchemist. But yeah, I think that the whole ending just solidified everything to me. And that's what I love about endings. I think what I do when I watch films is, if it's something like, for example, Shame or this movie, there's so many ideas thrown out there, and there's so many expectations or forks in the road that I can imagine the film going, that the way it ends is like really determining on like my final feelings. And I'm just like a whore for ending. Like, when I write screenplays or attempt to write screenplays, honestly, I think of the beginning and I think of the ending. That's how I do it, and then I try to fill in everything in between. So if that's saying anything about how I watch movies, I think that's important. But yeah, I think the ending was out of my expectations, totally out of left field in terms of like when it happens, because they get up there and he's like, I'm not going to disappoint you guys. And if you are to go into it knowing just the ending, that's like kind of disappointing, you know? Like you're like, there's this whole journey, and I'm not going to disappoint you guys because I promise you guys truth. I promise you guys like all everything. We are mortal. We're not immortal, and this is reality. That's like, you know, but going through the whole journey, and I liked how you said it, and a lot of reviews that I've read have said it, is that this movie is a journey, and this movie has to be like is an experience and has to be experienced. And so the ending, wrapping up all of my thoughts earlier, like how I thought the whole film, what it meant and all that kind of stuff, really impacted me. And I think aside from that 30 minutes and even with my bias and glazed over thoughts and everything like that, I think giving this movie personally an Oogway is perfectly valid. All
right. I totally understand that score. It's so creative, I would say.
So like perfectly up my alley.
Yeah. I'm not even just gonna. I already said my thoughts, so I'm just gonna say I give it a lion turtle.
Damn, that was where I was at.
Exactly the same as the Minions movie. Just
I-
as good. Literally, just the same. I love that you said you compared it to the Minions movie before because I was going to do that anyway. I already knew what I was going to give it. I knew what I was going to give this movie when I scored the Minions movie. I was like, I want this.
But it's not just like for the memes. It actually there's similarities too. So you know, in my opinion, the surrealism, the weirdness.
It's mostly for the meme for me.
Yeah. No, it's mostly for the meme for me too. But you know, it's not.
I don't think
100% for the.
I would say there are little to no similarities.
I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Minions, they can't talk. Not a lot of talking in this movie. A lot of weirdness. That's 2 similarities. That's 2.
Well, you
and
know
there
what?
are movies. 3.
You know, you're right. When you're right, you're right. I mean, I can't argue with that.
No, yeah, that's so funny because I was at a Lionturtle and the Squirt, and I was like, okay, how we're discussing it, because when we discuss it, it definitely shows like where the movie tilts to, because it's like hard in my mind, but when we start talking about it, it's definitely easier for me to solidify a choice. So I was like on a Lionturtle and the Squirt, and it was like either it's going to shift up to an Oogway or shift down to a Lionturtle, and I was like, if it shifts down to a Lionturtle, I'm going to be like, yep, exactly the same score Joey gave the Minions. So we had the exact same thought process,
Yeah.
pretty much.
I've been setting up that joke for the last couple days.
Oh, really?
Just so I gave Minions. Although definitely wanted to give Minions a lion turtle, just because you only live once.
That is true.
Sometimes you just gotta give the Minions a lion turtle. But anyway. Great movie, and 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked for this long, so...
Wait, but like and subscribe and then everything.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that in the Minions, and then Josh told me after the recording, and I was like, God.
Yeah, I was actually, right then, I was attempting to talk some more so I could go back to you so you could say it.
Oh, man.
No, but it's all good. That's all I had to say, so...
Oops.
All right, bye.